Okay, so I already like the dude's introduction this week, but like, look at this place. My man knows how to throw a festival. But with that said, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one of our weekly Attack on Titan final season discussion videos. Today we're talking all about episode 4, From One Hand to Another. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all. Let all of AniTube know that you're here. And with that said, what do you say we go ahead and peruse the festival grounds while we go ahead and talk about this week's pretty friggin' awesome episode? Okay, well, I kind of lied to you a little bit. We're not gonna immediately talk about the episode because I want to take a quick second just to address something that's gonna be happening, because I'm sure some folks might be confused when next week rolls around. So there is no new episode this week. In fact, there's like no new episodes of most shows. Don't freak out. This isn't like Mappa like destroyed them and like destroyed the animators and now they gotta blah blah blah. No, although I am still concerned about Mappa's animators. I worry about crunch. You know, like I don't want these people to have to crunch just for our entertainment. Like I've seen it in the gaming industry. I've seen it in the anime industry. It's not a good time. So I hope they're not crunching them over at Mappa. I'm positive they are. But this is not about crunch. This is about the fact that I don't know if you guys have checked the calendar. This is about the fact that it's friggin' New Year's next week. So that's why it's not like they're not really going to be working on much. They're taking the week off, I suppose, or they're at least giving them some time off next week. So there's not going to be any episode of Attack on Titan next week. It's going to be back on the 10th. It's going to be back on the 10th. So that's not too bad. It's just a week's break. That said, oh man, the cliffhanger this week. They really had to do us dirty like that, didn't they? That is pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie, this cliffhanger was pretty rough, man. And I suppose we should start by talking about the man in question, the man who is responsible for said cliffhanger, and the man who's responsible for quite a lot of the shenanigans going on, honestly. Eren, or as friggin' Falco's been calling him, Mr. Kruger. And I was like, Kruger! Gee golly whiz, wonder where he got that name. Like, so, it's all coming together. It's like poetry, it rhymes. It's all coming together. And it's just... Eren is definitely, like, to me this week is sort of like, and I hate saying this because people say this all the time whenever there's like game playing happening in a show, but it's true. It reminds me of like early Game of Thrones when the show was still good. And it reminds me of that whole like game playing and how these people are playing these like events that will shape the course of their world. And they're these huge like characters within the setting, right? Eren Yeager, Willy Tybur, and like these huge big players on the global stage of their world. And yet it's going to have huge ramifications on the people who inhabit it and how these changes and these plans will actually affect them, not just the people making the plans, but how it will affect the people who live in said world. That's sort of the vibe that this week's episode gave me. Just this sense of like a huge game being played, and it's between two characters right now. And I say right now because I feel like Magath, or Commander Magath, or whatever we're calling him, Commander Magath, I assume, will have a bigger part to play. I feel like he's also playing a game. There's a lot of characters who I think are playing a game. I even kind of think Zeke's playing a game, if I'm super honest. Just because of something we'll get into later with Eren. But it's very clear that there's two individuals playing this week, and that's Willy Tybur and Eren Yeager. And Eren, or Mr. Kruger, is seemingly at least what I had assumed at the beginning, what I had thought was happening was when he's talking with Falco that he was trying to get a letter, and Falco says like, is it to your family? Right? Because Eren explains like, hey, I want to send this letter, but like it's not going to go through if I send it from here. Like, can you send it from the outside? And Falco's like, yeah, totally. So Eren gets Falco to send this letter, and Falco asks like, is it for your family? And Eren responds with, yeah, I want to tell them I'm here and that I'm doing just fine. And I assume, and I assumed then, and I still mostly do now, but a part of me is like, what if it's not? But I assume now or I assume then and still assume now that the family in question is like Mikasa, Armin, like John, all like Levi, all the crew back home on Paradise Island. Or Paradise, whatever the pronunciation is. Let me know in the comments how it's pronounced. Is it Paradise or Paradise? But anyway, like the people back on the island. Like I assume that that's who he's talking about. That said, Eren's family does respond, right? Eren's family responds, and they respond by sending him a baseball and a catcher's mitt. A baseball and a catcher's mitt. That doesn't seem like something they would have on Paradise Island at all. And it also seems like an oddly specific gift. Now again, I am anime only, so do not friggin' tell me what happens in the manga. Don't tell me. I don't care. Let me find out on my own. You guys know the rules now. What do we do if we know things from the manga? Asterix, laughs in manga, asterisks. That's all you gotta say because it's super ambiguous, but people who read the manga will know what you're talking about. So, I have to address the fact that I can only think of like one other character who has any connection to a catcher's mitt or a baseball, and that's Zeke. And I was like, okay, I assumed that the family in question was the people back on Paradise Island. And it probably is. But what if it's not? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm sitting right now with Eren, where it's like, you're the main character, and yet I don't know where your head's at. You know what I mean? Even I'm like, I don't know what's going on with Eren. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know where he's been. I don't know anything. It's been 4 years, like, spanning between the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4, right? Like, not that it's been 4 years in real time. I just mean like in the canon of Titan, it's been 4 years between the events of season 3 and the events of season 4. So I'm sort of left here like, okay, what if like Zeke and Eren have been in contact this whole time? What if like there's a bigger plan? Again, it's the reason why I think that Zeke is also playing a game, where it's like, what if like Zeke knows that Eren's there and they're plotting something? You know what I mean? Like, what? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. But everything that happens with Eren, like even down to the post-credit scene where Eren like gets Falco to go get Reiner and brings Reiner down to this like dusty cellar, and he's just like, "Yo, Reiner, it's been 4 years," and he just stares at him. And I got shivers because it's just, I was not expecting it. It was so chilling. And of course, that's where we end the friggin' thing. And I'm like, dang it. And now I gotta wait 2 weeks. It's not just 1 week that we have to wait. It's gonna be 2 weeks. 2 weeks of just sitting on like, what the high hell is gonna happen? Because like in the PV for next week, Eren's eyes like glow for a second. I'm like, oh shit! Like, is he gonna turn? Like, is he gonna transform right in the cellar? Like, I really hope not, because Falco's down there. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. That's all I'll say. Also, speaking of interesting, the scene with the physician named Jaeger. I was like, okay, right? Like when I saw that, I'm like, nani? Like, that's a big coincidence. But then I was like, wait, not a coincidence. I know exactly who this is. And yeah, like Eren basically is talking with this dude, and the dude explains Falco's story to Eren and basically tells him to back off, right? Because he's like, I don't want your shenanigans. I don't want whatever you're planning or plotting or whatever to hurt that boy and to hurt his brother and their family. You don't know what they've been through to get to where they are now, and like you interfering could ruin everything. You know, like you could literally destroy everything that they've been trying to build. This like these becoming honorary Marleyans, like you could destroy that. So you have to stop this, and you have to go back to wherever it is that you're from. You have to go back to those people because they might not always be around. You have to spend time with them while you can, cherish them while you can. And to me, that was chilling, right? Because it's like, okay, he is still in his, like, the events that set the series into motion, the things that Grisha does, it still rattle and shake the world that the series takes place in. And we see that just through his old man, right? Eren basically meeting his grandfather in this moment. And Eren asks, like, do you have any regrets about your own family? And Grandpa Jaeger just, like, breaks down. And as I said, like, what happened with Grisha still haunts him. You know, like what happened with Grisha and Grisha's sister. And it still eats at him. Which is interesting because when I first saw it, like, the way that he responds is, like the way that the dad responds to the sister's death, like, way back when. Like, it would not have led me to think that he would have this reaction talking to Eren, like, decades later. It's a lot. Like, it's a heavy scene. But I do think it's interesting, and it just sort of further fleshes out, like, Eren being here is gonna be heavy. Like, Eren showing up to this area was always gonna be heavy, you know, like Eren leaving Paradise Island and encountering these people was always going to be heavy, and it really is. Like, that whole scene is perfect and just absolutely, like, brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted. It really broke my heart seeing Grandpa Jaeger just break down. Like, that was really rough for some reason, and I have to give the show kudos. I thought that they handled it brilliantly well. But that said, it's time to talk about the other dude out here making plays. And I'll admit that this is where I'm a little confused. I'm kind of dumb. You guys know that. Yeah, I'll admit I don't super know what's going on. I may have to call Animac or something and be like, can you explain what in the seven hells is going on? Because, like, I follow, but I feel like there's a lot that I'm missing, and I can't tell if it's that the show is going to explain it or if the show has already explained it, and this is another situation where I just look stupid because I don't remember certain events. But I was like, who are the Tyburs, right? And I was like, oh, right, they're the family that the crew was talking about last time. They own the Warhammer Titan. Okay, I kind of know them, but by the time we meet Willy Tybur, I was like, we don't know this guy, right? Is this the guy who was walking around town? Like, because I know everybody said, like, no, that was Jean. And I'm like, is it Jean or was it this guy? Because, like, now I'm not super sure because they kind of have the same length hair. I don't know. But that said, like, he is surprisingly chill, like, considering the situation that he finds himself in. And his family, like, when the Tyburs arrive, it's like this big commotion, right? But when you open the door, it's deceiving. Like, and I think that that's really interesting, and it's a neat touch that Isayama brings to this character where, like, you feel like he should be this holy crap, big, important dude, and he totally is. But he's like a family man as well, you know? Like, when Magath opens the door to find the Tyburs, it's Willy, and he's like, oh, it's lovely to meet you. And you see his family, and, like, the kids are, like, play fighting on the couch, and they flip the whole friggin' couch over and all this stuff. And Tybur explains that one of the people in the room is the Warhammer Titan. And I'm like, is it Willy? I don't think so, because otherwise I feel like he would have said, it's me. So somebody in that room is the Warhammer Titan. I really have no idea who it could be. Because they seemed so normal, like, for lack of a better word. Like, just seeing, like, a bunch of kids fight, the mom trying to keep things together, and, like, the dad just kind of chit-chatting in the background. Like, it felt just kind of normal, right? I was like, they seem like a little rowdy, but I mean, like, they're kids. What you gonna do? So I'm kind of shocked that Willy is depicted as being sort of kind of like an average sort of family man, which I didn't really see coming, especially given the role that he's going to play. Willy and Magath basically talk about how the Tyburs have always sort of been like the real power behind Marley, and Willy explains, like, yeah, and it's time for us to step up and step into the shadows. Will you help me? Right? And it leads eventually to this friggin' awesome shot. I'm probably showing it on screen, where it's Willy and Magath like talking in private. Well, not in private, but like into like basically private, right? Like hidden in plain sight type shit. Where they're sitting down on opposite sides of a bench and they're talking, but like they're looking in two different directions. It's like the classic sort of spy trope where like you trick them by facing different directions even though you're very clearly talking to each other. And it's interesting how Willy, again, like I said, he's depicted as being this sort of average family man, but he's also depicted as being this like billionaire playboy philanthropist who can like calm down an angry group of diplomats, and then he just sort of commands respect whenever he's on screen. And hell, even I was just like, anytime he's on screen, he absolutely steals the scene. And so even I'm sort of with him, right? I'm like, yeah, man, I want to see what this dude's plan is. And it's like the idea of casting this would have been tricky, right? Because you need a voice that perfectly fits. And I really think the individual playing Willy Tybur like nails this sort of like, I don't want to say Loki-esque, but this sort of like, he has more cards up his sleeve than you might think type of character. And, or maybe he doesn't, you know, maybe he's wearing his heart on his sleeve. But what I do think is interesting is just this character wielding this sort of like respect, right? Like he just commands respect when he enters a room and people listen to him, right? Like he's able to defuse the situation, all this stuff. And I do think it's interesting too the way that the two characters sort of oppose each other, right? Like Willy is very much intrigued by the hero Helios, who like helped overcome the Titans after, you know, the Tybur stepped up. Whereas Magath just sort of sees the world as like as it is, right? It's sort of like watching the Hound talk to like Miles Morales, right? Just like somebody full of pep and wonder talking to somebody so like aggressively just contrarian. And it's I something about this character, man, something about Willy, he is immediately engaging. And I like that he has like this, like he declares he's gonna make this big announcement, and to do that he sets up a carnival, because of course he does. But again, as I said, everybody has a plot, right? Like, and with Willy, it seems like the plot is to reveal that they're the ones in charge and to sort of take the power from across Marley and sort of harness it into one thing. And a part of me is really questioning whether or not Willy's gonna be around, only because I really do think Eren's probably gonna transform in the cellar, and wouldn't that kill him and anybody near there? Because it's underneath where they are. I don't know. But it's gonna be very interesting, to say the least. And the last thing I want to mention this week is that that even though we have these two people making these big plays, right, these big Littlefinger-esque plays, you still have the people at the center who are just sort of like the grunts who are being tossed into this mess, and that's the warriors. And it's interesting to me how Gabby notes that it feels like something's about to change. And Reiner's like, yeah, it does. And it does feel like that. Like, the show's been sort of teasing that, like, things aren't what they seem for quite a while now. And I do think that the Warriors are either going to be split up or, like, I don't even want to say it, but, like, one of them dying. The only one I'd be, like, moderately okay with dying is, like, Zofia. I will admit, Gabby is starting to get on my nerves a little bit, just in the way that she is like responding to Falco, because you would assume that she'd be like, oh, dope competition, but she's like, no, how dare you get out. And it's like, that's not the clearest sign of a good person. So that was a little disappointing. But I think overall, all the characters on the Warriors team I really like, especially characters like Galliard and Peak, because you just don't really see them as like a full unit together, right? Like the old guard and the new guard. And it's just super, I think it's really neat to see how the effects of Eren and Willy are like actually outwardly changing lives of the people who live in these areas, right? Like the warrior kids like were not aware of like ice cream and stuff like that, right? Like it's just things that they just didn't know because their whole life has been war, and it's definitely emotional. and I'm very curious where this story is gonna go next. Also, may I give a big thank you to the lady who saved Udo from like getting fired or worse. And I like something about her was also intriguing. And especially saving Udo, I really appreciate that because I like Udo a lot. So yeah, very interesting. A lot of interesting stuff to play with this week. A lot of interesting ideas, a lot of interesting topics. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. So if you did enjoy, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, set notifications to all, and let all of AniTube know that you're here. And before we go, as always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you'd like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button to get a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and of course your name scrolling past the screen here. Or you can go ahead and check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. Either way, it is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the T Squadron. And I don't talk about this often. I should mention this more, but we do have a Twitch channel. If you guys want to hang out, I mentioned it a bunch. It's in the description. We have a Twitch page. Come hang out. I stream a lot, especially lately. And if you follow us over on Twitter, I'll start posting and like pinning my Twitch schedule to like the top of my Twitter feed if you want. You know, it's there. You know, it's a good place. You might want to follow me on Twitter in case anything ever happens to the channel. There's also a second channel. I barely use it, but it exists. But yeah, okay. With that said, everybody, that's it for me. So until next time, you stay classy. You wash your dang hands. And maybe if you see a festival this dope, go ahead and go. But after, you know, the Backstreet Boys reunion tour is over. Good for you if you got that reference.